Today on the podcast, we are taking a trip down memory lane. I am sharing some of the greatest lessons that I have learned from the dogs that I loved. I'm starting off with the story of Jayce, or as I like to call it, the dog who didn't need me until he did. Until he did. I hope you will indulge me in this journey of all of the greatest lessons we learn from the animals we share our life with. This is story number 1 in the series. It's the story of the journey of Jayce. I hope you enjoy. Ready to have a calm and peaceful life with your dog without the stress of those fear-based behaviors? Hi, I'm Tracy, and I've been there, overwhelmed by all the conflicting dog training advice and unsure of what to do next. But now I help dog lovers like you simplify your life with your dog by building confidence naturally, fostering trust, and addressing those fear-based challenges. So, if you're ready, stop chopping those chicken wieners and let's get to it. Well, hello, my dog-loving friend. It's Tracy from Beyond Obedience, and I am going to come out straight out of the gate with a little bit of honesty here. I'm coming at this recording today a little raw, and and as a result, I have chosen. Today it's going to be a little bit different. If you haven't heard, because I'm not entirely sure when this episode will come out. If you haven't heard, I recently made the decision to put my horse Flame to sleep, and it was a very challenging day for me. I had hoped that I would get one more summer. I was hoping to see her in the field one last summer. I wish I had known that last summer was my last summer, but I didn't. And I had to make a very challenging decision, and I will probably talk more about that later. I don't think this is the place to talk about it. It's still very, very raw, still crying in the barn every morning. So as a communication thing, I remember once being told that you should never tell a story if you're still bleeding from the wound. You want to make sure that you're telling it from a scar. I was like, it's certainly not a scar. This is still very fresh in my mind. But I wanted to make sure that I mentioned sort of the reason for the kind of shift. There's a shift now in the next couple of podcasts. I wanted to, because, in this time of grief, it really makes us sort of introspective and reflective and all of that kind of stuff. And it has got me to thinking about the lessons that I have learned from the animals that I have shared my life with. And so I thought I'd just switch gears just a little bit, and we would do some storytelling, some things I've learned from the dogs that I've loved, and maybe by the end of this series, I will be in a place ready to talk about the things I learned from the horse that I loved so very much. See, shouldn't have said that. I was doing so well. All right. So that's what we're doing today, my friend, and I hope you don't mind. I hope you'll indulge me a little bit to go back in history and kind of share a little bit of some of the amazing lessons I've learned from the animals that I share my life with. And this one is a good one. This is the story that I like to call the journey with Jayce, or the title of The Dog Who Didn't Need Me Until He Did. So this, I will, I'm going to preemptively say this. I do have this story sort of written out and to sort of keep me on track. Again, apologies, as I am not 100%. So I wanted to make sure that I kind of got the whole story. Um, but anyway, so if you hear paper rustling in the background, that's just me just kind of making sure that I'm not missing any of the good parts of this story and in the order which it came. This is actually a lot of taking it from the journal that I took during my time. This was a trip that I took back in February of 2018, where I went to Texas to attend an extensive 9-day seminar with my mentor and friend, Nelson Hodges. And the requirements of this particular seminar was that we were to live with a husky from the Texas Husky Rescue for 24 hours a day, 9 days, without the aid of crates, gates, training tools, or fancy dog gadgets. And I was like, game for that. I'm like, how hard could that be, right? Turns out, spoiler alert, it was hard. It was hard. It was humbling. And it was, if I'm being honest, a little defeating. It was pretty defeating. And so I wanted to share this story, my journey with Jayce. Jayce, my dog Jayce, was mouthy, pushy, and a bully. And I remember the first walk with him, he pulled me around like a rag doll. And it was like I was just this little inconvenient thing that he had to drag along with him. He was trying to see the other dogs. He was trying to pee on everything. And most of all, it felt like he was trying to get away from me, that annoying human that was just honestly trying to connect with him. I was doing all the things, right, that you want to do. You want to pet them and hug them and like say hello and squish their faces because he was beautiful. He was gorgeous. But it was really, really challenging getting him. I was, for this experience, I was sharing this experience with my friend and fellow trainer, Karen Laws, and we were sharing a hotel room, but we were also sharing a rental car. So my dog was picked based on the fact that it had to get along with Karen's dog because we were going to be traveling with the dogs in the car. And so he wasn't, I was going to say he wasn't my first choice. He wasn't even my choice, but it was the dog that got along with the other dog. So he was the one I got. And that first car ride, putting them in the car, I remember we had tied Osha, was Karen's dog. We had tied her in the back and she was fine in the car. Jayce was a maniac. And so I had to sit in the back seat with him and hold him because he was trying to jump over the back of the seat. He was trying to jump in the front of the seat. He was biting at my arms. He was punching me in the face. It was a nightmarish trip back to the hotel. And then once I got to the hotel, it was even worse. He kept on jumping at me. He kept on biting me. He was grabbing at my arm. He muzzle punched me in the face. The only thing that I could think of to do in the moment was to step on his leash and step on it close enough down to the ground so he couldn't jump at me anymore. And he just immediately started biting my feet. So I remember that first night, we were like, talking about making dinner and whatnot. Karen was in the kitchen and we had bought a couple of bottles of wine, and she turned to me and she said, do you want a glass of wine? And I was staring out the window, stepping on this leash, a tear rolling down my cheek. And all I could think of was, how am I supposed to drink wine? I can't even get this dog to stop biting me. Like just crying. So, and so much regret. Like I was like, I'm not going to make it. I am not going to make it. And so basically our days look like this. Like at the hotel, we had to get up, we had to walk the husky first thing. And I mean, let's be real. The husky was walking me. Then we had to feed the husky. Then I had to shower with the husky because I couldn't leave him unattended. As I say, we didn't have crates or gates or any way to keep him in anywhere. And the very first time I walked him into like my bedroom, he literally jumped on my bed, rubbed his scent on my pillows. Then he continued I'd left the bottom drawer open with my clothes in it. He rubbed his scent all over my clothes. Like, I'm like, oh, is this what we're doing? Like, he was bold. And so I had to take him into the shower with me. I couldn't leave him unattended. And he would try to jump in the shower. He tried to pull the shower curtain down. He stuck his head in the shower. He tried to bite my legs while I was in the shower. Like, he was unreal. And then we would have to drive to the facility or the day events with the dogs. That was our day. So um, after the first night, and I had to resort to tying him to the closet door so that I could sleep. I got up early to walk him. We were only given a collar and a leash for walking equipment. Jayce pulled me out of the room so hard that I dropped my key card and then proceeded to jump on me while I tried to get my key card. He was an absolute maniac in the elevator, which frightened away anyone else who wanted to get in the elevator with me. But I mean, that's maybe not a bad thing. He tried to bolt into the breakfast area. Oh yeah, that was fun. He tried to bolt into the breakfast area and I had to yank him out, apologizing profusely. And by the time I actually got him outside to the car, I was actually exhausted, right? And then I had to walk him. Right? Or better described, he walked me, right? He pulled me down the street, every direction possible. Feeding time was a bit more controlled, but Karen and I had to take turns on like making our smoothies and that sort of thing. I can honestly say, though, I didn't like my husky buddy. We called them husky buddy. That's what Nelson would call them. You get to pick up your husky buddy. And I'm like, I didn't like mine. My husky buddy sucked. My body was already hurting. I was bruised all over from the mouthing and the biting. And this was only the first full day of the dogs. So it's going to be a long 8 more days. When we would go to the facility, we were told to put the dogs on a long line and walk them in the field and let them do their thing with a bit more freedom. And I was like, yeah, I can't control him with a 6-foot leash. How am I supposed to control him with a 15-foot leash? But actually, much to my surprise, it was much better because he was further away from me. And I think he preferred to be away from me. And he got to sniff stuff and explore. And he got far enough away from me. He just stopped caring. I think he just stopped caring that I was like being dragged along. I remember watching him though, and like the fact that he was completely disregarding my presence. And I thought, if I were to just like let go of this leash, he wouldn't even turn around to look where I was. Like he would be gone. He would be gone. And he wouldn't even look back, right? Because he didn't need me. He would have been fine. I'm sure he would probably be able to hunt down food and take care of himself, find shelter, sleep outside. He wouldn't care. He was a husky, right? He wouldn't care. And it was then that I realized like just how spoiled my ego was to live with dogs that actually needed me. Like it hit me hard, like how great that made me feel. Because right now I was feeling like really low and I missed my dog so much. And I knew that no amount of love that I gave this dog was going to make him want to spend time with me. He just didn't care. He really didn't care. I was not going to love my way into this dog's life. Just plain and simple. Wasn't going to happen. And so that night at our hotel, after a grueling day with the dogs, Karen had mentioned to me that she had ordered some training collars and that they were going to be delivered to her in Texas. And I was like, great, because I can't do this anymore. I know that I'm all usually for like, I'm a rule follower, but I couldn't do it. Like I was like, we'll use the training collars when we're not around Nelson. And because I can't handle it anymore. Especially in the evenings, because I was exhausted. And honestly, he wasn't. like he wasn't. He was still rearing. He's a husky. And like this wasn't any fun. Now I had a slight snag with Jayce. He wasn't eating. And the first day and a half, like it didn't really matter. We were just like, he's, it's new and exciting. But now it was like day 3 and I was getting a little bit concerned because he was also struggling to poop. So I spoke to Nelson. We agreed that he should be checked out before going too far into the program. So we set up this vet appointment. I dropped him off first thing in the morning, but then I had the whole day without him. Like, and I'm not going to lie, it was nice. It was nice to be able to move around, go to the bathroom, eat a meal without having him around. Also, there was a part of me, if I'm being real, that I secretly hoped. Not that he was sick. Don't get me wrong. Wasn't that mean. But I kind of hoped that they would be like, yeah, he probably shouldn't continue in the program and I would get a different dog. Because I'm like, there's got to be better dogs than this. Like this can't be my reality. But unfortunately, unfortunately, luck would have it, whatever you want to call it, he was fine. So they gave me some meds for his stomach. And when I went to pick him up, the vet techs could not get him out of the clinic fast enough. Like, I had never seen people be like, just take this dog. Turns out he was a jerk there too. And part of me was relieved that I wasn't the only one. But I did happen to notice like a slight change in him. Like when I walked into that clinic to get him, he actually ran towards me. And he actually looked delighted to see me, the dope at the end of the rope that he always ignored. He actually came over to see me, and I was like, you know. But then I had to like put it into perspective, because I'm like, being better than a vet clinic probably isn't that hard. So still, he seemed calmer, more relaxed in the car on the way back to the hotel. So I kind of smiled a little bit, and I thought maybe like it was a glimmer, like it was a tiny little glimmer, shimmer of hope that maybe things would get better. And then the next day at the training facility, after we had let the dogs roam around the field with their long lines before heading into the classroom, I wandered over to the parking lot because honestly, I was frustrated. Jayce was still pulling me, ignoring me, and I was tired because, you know, I didn't sleep very well ever. And Nelson saw me in the parking lot, and he started to make his way over, and he asked how things were going. And I no sooner began to answer him when all of a sudden Jayce like jumps up on the hood of the car. Now this is a rental car, right? So I grabbed the leash and I pulled him down. And Nelson says to me, you know, you could have asked him to get down instead of pulling him down. And I like immediately defended myself because I'm like, this is a rental car though. I'm not paying for the damages done on this rental car. And he replied with, well, Jayce doesn't know that. And I was like, yeah. I just kind of stared at him blankly. I mean, like, yeah, you're right. But anyway, that evening we're at the hotel and Jayce does what he always does. And he jumps up on my bed, and I immediately went to pull him off the bed. And I thought, nope, you know, I'm going to ask the dog because Nelson said to ask him. So I'm going to ask the dog. So I put my hand up in front of his face to gesture him to get off the bed, and he bit me. And I was like, that's it. I'm done with you. I like just pulled him off the bed. I'm like, that's it. I got to go to bed. Like, I'm done. Right. But you know, the days were getting better and better little by little. I had cheated and I went out and I got him a tug toy, because even though Nelson didn't really want us playing games like tug because he didn't want the dogs using their mouths, I was like, this dog's already used his mouth and I am his tug toy. So this has got to be better. And I had to, honestly, I didn't know what else to do. So it did help. I'm not going to lie. It did help. It helped get out some of those frustrations. Because I didn't know what else to do. I couldn't keep up with him physically. I have a bum ankle and arthritis to boot, so running this dog was not an option. He did well with exploring the fields, and then the trips to Home Depot and the tractor source were fun for a while, but he got bored. He was really, really smart. But the walking, like just taking this dog for a walk was so unbearably painful for me. And I remember too, because there was a group of us, right? I wasn't just me and Karen. There was a group of us, and we as a collective, we kept on asking Nelson, like, when are you going to be teaching us about this loose leash walking lessons with these dogs? And he just kept saying soon. And I was like, okay, but like today would be nice because I can't feel my arms anymore. And I'm like, where are those training collars? Right? Where are those training collars? Like, I just couldn't do it anymore. And I was miserable. But, and this is the but, right? There was a moment on like day 5. This was day 5 of this 9-day thing. Jayce and I were out on our walk in the morning in the field. And I call this the magic frog moment. This is because hang with me. I call this a magic frog moment. So we're out in the field in the morning, right? We're walking around. He's doing his usual thing. He's pulling me around. And all of a sudden, a frog jumps up out of nowhere and starts heading towards this little, I used to call it the puddle pond. I don't know why. It was like a puddle, but kind of pond-like, right? And it startled both of us, right? Like both at the same time. And so we both started heading towards it. Like it startled us, and then I was like, "Ooh, it's a toad, or it's a frog," right? So we both start chasing after it. I'm not sure what Jayce's intentions were, but I just wanted to see where it was going. So the frog eventually jumped into the puddle pond, and swam to the other side. And we stood there on the one side of the puddle pond and we watched it as it swam away. And I was like, both of us just standing side by side, just watching this frog. And once it was done, I kind of said out loud, I'm like, that was pretty cool. And Jayce looked at me, and then for about 15 seconds, and then he took off and he started sniffing the ground and he walks away. And I braced myself for the yank, because that's what was my life. Like, he would just go and I would have to brace myself to be pulled off my feet. But he walked about 5 or 6 feet away from me. He turned around as if to say, are you coming? And it was in that moment, I like, if you could picture it, I was kind of like, me? Like, are you waiting for me? Like, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm flattered. Like, I start girl fanning over this husky. Like, I'm like, oh, me? I can go? Oh my. Like, but I joke about it now, but it literally was like, oh my gosh, are you actually waiting for me? Is this happening? Right? The evening walks, though, like after the day was done, the evening walks for me, like, were the worst. And again, it was because I was tired and Jayce wasn't. But there were still some moments of extreme pulling that seemed to tear my arms right out of the socket. During our class time, if we weren't at the facility, we would take the dogs to a few different locations. But there was this playground that we kept visiting. Nelson liked us to do our quote unquote environmental agility on this playground. And if I'm being honest, and I don't know if Nelson listens to my podcast, but it ends well. I mean, you know that I love Nelson, but I started to hate this exercise. Like, I really, really did. Because I felt like we were there for way too long, and the dog and myself, we were getting bored. I mean, how many times can you ask a dog to go under a picnic table and on a picnic table and walk on a log and go through a kid's play structure? And there was this one visit, though, where we were doing the usual picnic table, balance on a log, whatever. And we were walking past the big slide. And, it's like one of those plastic slides with the bump in the middle of it, the really big slides. And Jayce stopped and he looked up at the top of the slide. And I was like, oh, dude, you can't do that. Like, you won't make it. Like, it's way too slippery too, right? But it felt like he was saying that he wanted to try it. So I was like, you know what? You do you, boo. Like, So I said, okay, you know what? I backed up. I give him the length of the leash. And then we both run towards the slide. I kind of like, give him the leash. And did he not clear the entire slide? And I mean the entire slide. Like, didn't hit the bump. Like, he cleared it and landed gracefully on the platform. And I was shooketh. Like, I literally was like, oh my God. I start applauding and cheering him. And I'm like completely unaware of what's like the rest of my surroundings, because the rest of class is now looking at us, because I'm like a fool, like, oh my God, like, what did you just do? And I thought, wow, this dog just totally upped our environmental agility game. Right. And so after that, like, all of a sudden I started looking like I was boring him. I realized I was boring him. I wasn't giving him the benefit of the doubt and what he could do. This dog was athletic. So I started asking more of him and then delighting in everything that he did. And so that was another sort of slight turning point for Jayce and I, because he looked so stinking proud of himself, like so stinking proud of himself. I had to climb up the stairs on the other side to get up to the platform because I didn't want him to come down the slide. But he was just like, look what I did. And I'm like, you did it. Like, it was a really, really nice moment. So one of the games, the things that we do with the dogs in the program was the follow the dog exercise. And that's where we followed the dog all through. And this was introduced to me in Nelson's 3-day seminar. But he had us practice this every single day. And the goal of follow the dog is to let the dog lead and then you follow. The catch is that you also have to be interested in the things your dog is doing. And I have to admit, my first few days with Jayce, I just followed mostly because I couldn't keep up with him. And by the time I got to the thing he was sniffing, he was long gone and he didn't even notice me. But as the days went on, and certainly after the frog and the puddle pond incident, I did find that he would actually wait for me. He would let me see the things that he found. Sometimes I didn't exactly know what it was that we were looking at, but there was a definite shift. And the more I practiced this, the more he seemed to almost patiently wait for me to catch up or crawl up or kneel down or whatever it was to show me what he was looking at. And that shift caused me actually to take a pause and think about like the walks that I had with my dogs and how many times did I ignore invites to investigate, right? How many times did my dogs ask me to see something and I just didn't look at it? And I'm sure, like anything else, if you ignore it long enough, they just stop asking, right? So, what had I been missing with my life with my dogs back home? One late evening, I left the hotel with Jayce, and the change in him had been actually quite remarkable by day 7. I had actually come to enjoy our alone walks. As we got to the end of the parking lot of the hotel, a siren rang out. It startled both Jayce and I. We turned towards the sound to see the firehouse immediately beside the hotel. At the edge of the property was this concrete half wall. And so I hopped up on the wall and sat down, and Jayce immediately followed me and sat down beside me. We watched as sleepy fire persons came out of the side room and began getting on their gear. Part of me, if I'm being honest, was disappointed that it wasn't quite as dramatic as seen on TV. But regardless, it was quite a show. Suddenly, the big bay doors opened, and one by one, the trucks exited, sirens ablazing. And Jayce and I just watched the whole thing as they made their way down the road and out of sight. We sat there for a few moments before I said, well, that was exciting. Shall we carry on? We hopped down and continued on our walk. But what was really cool was the next evening, Jayce pulled his way over to the half wall, jumped up on it, and he paused and looked at me as if to ask, are you joining me? And I said, I don't think there's a show tonight, big guy. But he just sat down on the wall. And I looked at him for a moment and I said, well, I guess if you insist. So we sat there in a calm, sort of quiet way for about 5 minutes. And it was then that I realized that I don't think I was going to be able to say goodbye to this dog. This is the part that gets hard for me. Day 8. Jayce slept the whole night by my side on the floor. This was a big deal. Okay, you have to remember, this was a big deal. Because when I started, I had to tie this dog to the cupboard door. But now he was respectful. He no longer got up on my bed and rubbed himself all over my bed, but he slept beside my bed on the floor. Didn't need to be tied. And I woke up in the morning. I woke up in the middle of the night, actually, to the bathroom, stepped over him, went for a pee, came back, and he didn't move. He lifted his head, but he didn't move. And I was like amazed at how far we came in such a short time. We ventured out for our morning walk, and as I walked down the road, I found myself lost in my thoughts. I knew that our journey was coming to an end, and we would have to say goodbye, and what a hell of a journey this had been. I could feel tears welling up in my eyes, and I stopped myself because I still had the day, and I had to bring myself back into the moment. And when I did, I realized he wasn't pulling me. And I mean, he wasn't pulling me at all. He was in front of me, but he wasn't pulling me. And it kind of blew my mind. And that's also when I thought to myself, I don't know if Nelson, quote unquote, forgot to tell us about how to walk the dogs and loose leash walking and all that stuff, or he did it intentionally because the relationship work we were doing was so strong that we would get a dog to want to be with us. Like, you know, when you're like, oh, this is one of those moments where the mentor is like, yeah, I'll teach you that. But then also you won't need it. Like, it was pretty spectacular. Like, it blew my mind. And so I continued on the walk. I went through the strip plaza that I always did. He immediately jumped up on the half wall and he began like strutting because we had done this so often, but now it was like, he was like, look what I'm doing. And I remember that first walk when he didn't even take a moment to consider me. But this time, like, he pranced and I applauded. And then I stepped onto the half wall, and I'm not going to lie, we did a little dance. We did a dance because it was early in the morning. There wasn't anybody at the strip mall. Would I have done that in the middle of the day? I don't know. I don't think so. Get back to the hotel room. I feed him. And then I go to get in the shower. And this time he just sat outside the curtain. He occasionally stuck his head in and under the water to kind of playfully play with it. And I was like, I never in a million years thought, like, I'm going to miss this. I'm going to miss showering with a husky. We get back to the facility that day. We had the opportunity to switch dogs. Now, this is where it got really interesting for me because we got to switch dogs with the other people in the class so that we could give our assessment of that dog to the rescue for potential adopters. And partway through this exercise, Nelson asked me to take Jayce back. And I was like, why? Like, why? But it turns out like he had been jumping up at all the new handlers and trying to bite them. And I walked over and I took the leash from Nelson, and Jayce was clearly agitated, but I knew exactly what to do. So we went over to the puddle pond and we sat down. And as soon as I sat down next to him, he started to settle. And I thought, isn't it weird how I just kind of knew exactly what to do with him to get him back? Like, and I completely sort of lost myself in that moment because I didn't care what the rest of the class was doing. And the fact, actually, some of them had gone back into the classroom. I was just me and Jayce in this moment by the puddle pond, our frog moment, just sitting there. And he calmed right down. He laid down beside me, and that was it. So last day, day 9. Today was the day. We woke up and we did our normal walk and our feeding ritual, but not much was spoken. The dogs seemed to sense there was a change as my friend and I also began to pack and check out of the hotel. The plan for the day was to take the dogs to the facility for the morning chat, then a walk, then to the Bass Pro Shop for a final adventure. And after that, we were to take the dogs back to the daycare where the rescue would take them back. At the facility, I left Jayce in the car while we were having our final class, and Jayce normally was quite good about being in the car, but today he whined and he cried. I turned to Nelson, who gave me just a simple nod, and I went out to the car. He jumped out and I took him into the class. Jayce, who would normally take some time to settle in, immediately curled up in a small ball in between my feet. It was complete and utter connection. This goodbye was going to suck. Bass Pro Shop was okay. It was hard to stay in the moment with all you could think about was how much I love this dog. This jerk that bit me and jumped all over me and pulled me off my feet. This dog, this amazing, incredible dog. We finished up at the store and we were all heading to the parking lot. One final drive to the daycare where we would all part ways. On the way down, I turned to my friend, Karen, and I said, okay, without the driving off the cliff part, do you want to just Thelma and Louise our way over the border back to Canada? Like, we could just keep driving. Don't stop. She laughed. She said, yeah, right. Thank goodness we have to catch a flight home. I think both of us would be adopting these dogs. At the daycare, Nelson advised us. This part is so hard. At the daycare, Nelson advised us that we would be, that we were just to walk in, hand the dog over, no fussing, be professional. As I walked towards the building, everything seemed to be moving too quickly. The door opened, I walked through, Nelson grabbed the leash. I turned to leave. I looked back one last time to see Jayce's head turn towards the door. And then just like that, he was gone. I quickly wiped a tear from my eye. I walked back slowly to the rental car. One of the other students went to hug me, but I rushed by her. I knew if someone hugged me, the tears would not stop flowing. And that is the story of Jayce. So even reliving this still takes me back to the emotions and the struggle. What was fascinating for me about this whole experience was not just the change, but all of the realizations that came from the change in this dog. The idea that you can build a relationship with a dog that doesn't need you, that, which was so different for me. Like, I know I mentioned it earlier in the story, but it was so different for me because I've always had dogs that needed me. I always had dogs that had some sort of a social drive to them. Either I raised them as a puppy, so they always looked to me for food and shelter and support and all of that stuff. But this was a dog that just didn't. And I literally was like, I don't know how to connect with you if you don't need me. And what a crazy sort of moment, that idea that if I just let him go, he would be fine. Like he didn't care. He would be fine. Was, one of the big ones. The other one was the fact that, we went through, I don't think I mentioned in the story. I should have mentioned the story. The training collars did come. The training collars did come. They ended up showing up. And I remember Karen going, here are the collars. And she handed me one. And I looked at that point in time, I looked at them and I'm like, I don't think I need them anymore. And I just put it it was right beside the TV because I was sitting in the chair beside the TV in the living space there. And I'd left it there and I never used it. I ended up never, ever using it because I didn't need it. As I say, I think that was part of Nelson's plan, like the whole, like, how do we teach them to stop pulling us? He'd be like, we'll do that soon. And then he never did. Or maybe he did. I can't remember. The point was, by the time he did, we didn't need it. That was, or at least I didn't. I can't speak for anyone else, but I didn't need it. And that part was life-changing as well. It did make me realize that, that I had relied on equipment a little bit as a crutch. Now, don't get me wrong. I think the thing to keep in mind with this experiment in particular was the intensity of the experiment. The idea that we were spending 24 hours and our days were spent just simply focusing on this dog and the relationship. So it's different if you have a life, if you're not doing just this, right? I know, but people be like, I do spend all my time with my dog, but we don't, and we're not fully engaged in it. We are thinking about so many other things. And in this particular case, I had, spent a lot of money on a program. So you're going to focus on this program, right? But it was 9 intensive days of, just relationship work with a dog, which was incredible. And honestly, it was after this experience that I came home and I built my relationship remedy program. The Fearful Dog program is also built, around the work done here. But I changed all my programs to be all of this. And so that's why you won't hear me talking a lot about how to fix a behavior with training. You'll hear me talk about how to fix a behavior with relationship and understanding the dog and coming at it from a different way, because I do truly believe that when we focus on fixing the relationship, first of all, everything else gets easier. It was amazing how all the different parts of the struggle at the beginning of my story, my journey with Jayce, they all disappeared around the same time. Like, he no longer pulled me into the breakfast area at the hotel. He gladly got into the elevator with me and wasn't a menace. He was able to sit in the car in the back seat and not have me have to hold him. All of the things, he stopped pulling on the leash. He started asking questions. He wanted to hang out with me. Like, all of those things happened, but all the other quote unquote problems disappeared. The fact that he would just lay on the floor beside my bed and sleep beside me was mind blowing to me if you saw him a mere 6 days earlier, so the result of this program allowed me to recognize that there are so many times in my life where I fixed a behavior with training and training techniques, but it didn't necessarily change the relationship. And a lot of times the behavior will just come up in different ways. It'll bubble up someplace else if we're not really focusing on the underlying thing, the all of the things about leadership and relevance and fulfillment, and really getting to know your dog and your dog's doginality and all of that stuff. So although Jayce wasn't quote unquote my dog, I didn't adopt him. I wanted to adopt him. I didn't adopt him. I think honestly, if this had been a trip where if I had driven down, I probably would have taken him home. And Mark would have been like, you can't go to any more dog training seminars. But I am happy to report Jayce did end up finding a home and did quite well and all of that good stuff. So his story ended, with was a happy ending as well. And the lessons that he taught me, I'm telling you. And so, anyway, that was it. That was the story of Jayce and the story of my journey with Jayce. And a little piece of this experience is weaved into these podcast episodes. It's weaved into all of my programs. It's weaved into how I love and live and learn from dogs. So I hope you enjoyed that story. Thank you very much for allowing me to sort of relive it and to take a little bit of a different turn this week, while I continue to grieve the loss of my horse. And I think we're going to continue on with more things that I've learned from the dogs that I've loved. As always, if you enjoyed this podcast episode, can you do me a favor and share it? Share it with your other dog-loving friends. Can you give me a 5-star written review on Apple if you're listening on Apple? Comment if you're on Spotify or on Audible. Wherever you happen to listen, just, leave a rating, leave a comment. All of it helps to push this podcast out to more and more people, more and more dog lovers like you and me. And as always, my friend, get out there today and be the person that your dog thinks you are, because your dog thinks that you are amazing. And so do I. Have a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next episode. Oh, and one more thing. This podcast is meant for entertainment and education purposes only and is not meant to replace hands-on professional training. If you're really struggling with your dog, please reach out to a professional in your area. All right, I think that's it. Bye for now.